This week, as we wend our way towards the completion of the reading of the Torah, we share a double portion called Nitzavim Vayelech. Nitzavim is the famous part, God's call for the great gathering of our people each year, which we will be reading on Yom Kippur. Vayelech is the portion less well known, but in it lies a lesson that lives on in our hearts this very night. Here in Deuteronomy 31, 9 through 13, we read the commandment that the Torah must be read aloud and shared and studied and lived out in every generation. The Torah teaches us. Moses wrote down this Torah and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of God's covenant, and to all the elders of Israel. And Moses commanded them, saying, every seventh year on the sabbatical year, at the time of Sukkot, the Feast of Booths, when all Israel comes to appear before Adonai your God in the place that God will choose, you shall read this Torah aloud in the presence of all Israel. Gather the people, men, women, and children, the strangers in your communities, that they may hear, that they may learn, and that they may revere Adonai your God, and that they may observe faithfully every word of this Torah. And their children, who do not yet know, they shall hear, and they shall learn, and they shall revere Adonai your God as long as they live in the land that you are about to cross over the Jordan to possess. Imagine a world where the Torah's words of justice and love were regularly read aloud for all the people to hear. A world where men, women, and children, even the strangers in our communities, were welcomed equally to hear, to learn, to revere God's words of Torah. Imagine a world where we are retold each year the story of Adam and Eve and the lesson that it teaches, that we are all children of one human family, all God's children upon this earth. Imagine a world where we're retold each year of our people's journey from slavery to freedom, and the lesson that we have learned that until all people are free, none of us are truly free. Imagine a world where every year we studied God's commandments as a path towards becoming just and righteous people, and how we might build together a just and righteous society in which all of us could play our parts. Imagine a world where we learned every year of the holiness which resides within each one of us, and the holiness waiting to be uncovered within every aspect of our lives. Imagine a world where even the words of Torah, which seem less relevant to our lives, the commandments we fulfill in new ways, the stories we read with new eyes, when even these can become lessons that we have learned, which teach us to see God's words as an ever-evolving path towards the building of a better world. Imagine for a moment that we live now in just such a world, where the words of Torah echo still within our ears, now thousands of years after the words were first written and read, and yet still, every week, they're read and studied and taught as the path to revere Adonai our God, for us and for all to hear. We live in just such a world. We need only take these words into our hearts and live them out in our lives. Ken hi ratzon. May this be God's will. May this be God's way. May we live our lives on this path of Torah each and every day. Amen.